Here are 5 reasons why you should watch 2023's Night of the Hunted. Coming up on CEDtalks Horror. Now, Night of the Hunted is a 2023 horror thriller that tells the story of Alice, a married woman who's cheating on her husband with a guy from her workplace. Now, this story picks up on the eve of the night when she's supposed to head home from a pharmaceutical convention to meet her husband so they could go to the fertility clinic because they both are trying to have a child. But instead, she's driven home by her lover as they both exit a motel. Go figure. But things pick up when she stops at this 24-hour gas station market to get some gas and pick up a few items for the road. She then tries to pay for her items but doesn't see a cashier. But after trying to get someone to come to the counter, she spots a little blood on the wall. And Alice did make a beeline to the exit as she knows danger can't be far away. But it's too late. She receives a shot in the arm and a couple of other warning shots from an unidentified sniper, whose motive is to let her know that she's not going anywhere tonight, and that if he has to, he can hit her from anywhere. So this movie becomes a cat and mouse survival game for Alice as she's now trapped in a gas station store for the night with no help from anyone. Because who's the sniper? And what does he want? Well, you're going to have to watch that to find out. But why should you watch this movie? Reason number 1, it might trigger you. Yeah, mass shooters are scary. And this movie makes this particular mass shooter the things of nightmares if you live in 2023. So what do I mean by that? Well, see, this isn't your ordinary horror movie killer. Nope. This is the type of mass shooter you hear about on the news. So what am I saying? When I say this, and I'm not trying to be a jerk, but this movie was very intentional on who this guy is. He's a stop the steal, anti-vaxxer, January 6th, MAGA supporter type of mass shooter. Now, as a conservative, I wouldn't just use these terms, but this guy's with 100% the producer's representation of that character. I mean, he voices his frustration with her job because she's like a social media manager for a company that produces the COVID vaccine. Yeah, so he hates her for it. He hates her for being an unfaithful wife. He hates her for being everything you would expect a right-wing extremist would hate about a person on the left. I mean, he even invokes everything you might find offensive. Uvalde, Sandy Hook, COVID mandates, January 6th. And oh yeah, this guy draws the line in the sand, and the fact that the producers took such sensitive topics and played it so seriously, I give them kudos for it because that is what a horror movie is supposed to look like. You know my motto, if society is touchy about something and fear it, you put it in a horror movie. And this movie might trigger you. And reason number 2, no one is safe. I mean, part of making a horror film truly scary requires putting anyone in danger, and that includes children and even animals. I mean, this movie goes there. What starts off as a movie about a sniper with a vendetta quickly turns into a mass shooter horror movie, and no one is safe, including the child. I mean, the fact that the producers went there made me like this movie even more. Young people, old people, no one is safe. I mean, this killer is so unhinged, and because he's hiding behind anonymity, he could be any one of the people whom Alice encountered on this night. And reason number 3 you should watch Night of the Hunted? They did their homework. Like most movies, TV shows, or media that is left-leaning, they often do a poor representation of a right-wing psychopath. I mean, Hollywood does such a terrible job in and of itself on how to show the worldview of someone who's slightly conservative. I mean, when you hear the language and the type of stuff they have these characters say, you can easily tell that it's some leftist vision of what a conservative sounds like. But in this movie, the person who did the scripting knew what he or she was doing. I mean, the tonality, the gripes, the details in which this guy spoke with was something I honestly hear. And it's some of the stuff on a smaller scale I've engaged with. While I don't know the person who did the scripting, the fact that they used the right words seems like they knew how to talk the talk. And that's nothing short of brilliance. And reason number 4, it looks real. By now, we've all seen mass shooting scenes and how it looks. It looks disgusting and quite evil. I mean, there's a certain sort of rawness and aesthetic that accompanies something so tragic. I mean, this movie could have made this film look like your typical Hollywood shootout scene, but no, they went for extreme realism. The moments of silence before the chaos ensues. I mean, there's moments of tension that utilize silence, tons of silence, then a gunshot. I mean, it's something and a sort of sound and an aura that you just can't shake. It's like the person doing the shooting have no real plan, but just randomly picking people off based on their own discretion. And this movie has just that. I mean, this movie was bloody without your typical horror movie gore. It's hard to explain, but you have to see it to get the feel for it. When you're watching this movie, you feel like you're caught inside of a mass shooting scenario yourself, and there are no answers or any hope for anyone involved. This movie portrays this, ironically, to perfection. And finally, reason number 5 why you should watch 2023's Night of the Haunted. It has the perfect killer. And let me start by saying that Hollywood are cowards. And what do I mean by that? They claim to be willing to push the envelope, but I believe they just only want to push agendas. But hey, that's another conversation for another time. But when you see guys like Damien Leone, who loses funding because of his upcoming movie Terrifier 3, is willing to go places to bring true terror, that's when you know Hollywood has gone soft. And I'm one of those people who think that if society fears or have some sort of hang-ups about a certain subject, then horror movie filmmakers should go there and exploit that terror, because after all, we deal in frights and scares, and that's what a horror movie is about. I mean, this movie does just that though. I mean, they gave us the perfect killer, and not just some random sniper, but a sniper with a right-wing agenda. I mean, you hear the news talk all about this sort of thing all the time. Politicians fear that caricature, and Night of the Haunted gave us that guy. I mean, we never find out who he is or what his true motive is, but we know that he has a grievance and pretty much the picture perfect mold of a mass shooter, because a mass shooter could be anyone: neighbor, friend, family member, co-worker, employee, or just someone who's having a bad day. And when you throw in his extremist tendencies with that, I have no problem with that. Yeah, I'm a conservative, but I have no problem with filmmakers using that caricature that the media has built up and using it to give one of the best scares in a very long time. But hey, that's just me. What about you? Now, our kill of the week comes from 2023's Night of the Haunted. Night of the Haunted tells the story of a woman who stops at a remote gas station in the middle of the night and becomes the target of a psychopathic sniper with a secret vendetta. Now, our kill of the week occurs when Alice's lover, John, comes into the store to see what's keeping her so long. Because as he's trying to find out, she tries to warn him. But before Alice could warn John, he receives a well-placed slug to the side of the neck. And we as viewers, as well as Alice, are in shock because he's bleeding profusely. Then as John's body hits the ground, he starts to beg for help as life is leaving his body very slowly. Then he starts to crawl slowly on the ground, begging Alice for help. But she can't come from behind the barricaded area, because if she does, she's likely to get hit with a well-placed shot as well. So we are seeing her lose hope. And here we are seeing John lose hope. And out of nowhere, another shot enters the back of his skull and out of his eye, thus finishing John off. I mean, at that point, you knew no one was safe. There was no help coming for Alice, because anyone brave or bold enough, or even naive enough to step foot in that store would also receive a well-placed slug. Now, I enjoyed this movie because it went places I didn't know a filmmaker would be willing to go. It had high stakes, high tension, and tons of shock value. But what I love most about this movie is the fact that it gave us a killer and didn't do the thing that movies tend to do: give us a motive or the identity. And that's both refreshing and scary at the same time. Refreshing because it made the killer that much more creepy, but scary as this stuff happens all too often in the real world. And most of the time, these shooters don't have a true motive. They just snap or have an off day. And that reason is why mass shootings are tough to stop in this country, because you never know who or when. And until next time, when CEDtalks horror.